you guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be all about concealers. I am sharing with you my top 5 favorite concealers, why I love them, why they work so well for me. This is basically an in-depth review of each of these concealers. I have a mix here of drugstore and high-end, and this is what I've discovered. I have a lot of concealers that I love in my collection that I have tried over the years that I continue to use and to love, but the older I get, the more I find it difficult to find a concealer that is going to hit all of the checklist items. It's got to have good coverage, it's got to be long wearing, it's got to be lightweight, but not so lightweight that you don't get the coverage out of it that you want. And sometimes these things are tricky to get all in one swoop. And then of course there's the price tag factor, which is always a consideration. So we'll go through all of that in this video today. I can't wait to share these with you guys. I think some of these are going to surprise you. Not all of them, but some of them. Before we do that though, if you are new to my channel, I want to give you a very special welcome. I hope that you'll consider subscribing and make sure that your notifications are turned on. And with that said, let's get right into it. Okay, let's get started. I'm not going to go in any particular order because honestly, I don't know that I could, because I feel like I like each of these concealers for something slightly different, depending on what my skin is like or how much time I have. So we're just gonna kind of pick one at random. Let's start with one that's kind of newer to me. This one has slowly but quickly been rising to the top of my concealer favorites, and it is the Versed Serum Concealer. I tried this out about 2 months ago. This concealer in particular, I find to be just a great general purpose concealer. I can use this everywhere on my face. It's high enough coverage, I would say on a coverage level, and I will rank each of these on a coverage scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest full level of coverage, which I don't think I have anything that's quite a 10. I would say this Versed concealer is a higher medium coverage, maybe a 7. It's nice and creamy, but it's not too thick or cakey. It works well on the perimeter of my face, on hyperpigmentation marks, active breakouts. It works on my under eye area. I can use it on my eyelids without too much creasing. I use the shade 4W, which is a really good shade for me right now. I love the doe foot of this one, the large packaging. I will say though, the larger packaging of this one is just slightly deceiving to me. It looks like the shape of like the Tarte Shape Tape, the e.l.f. concealers, both of which have about 0.33 ounces in them. This one has 0.23, so not quite as much as you might think looking at the larger rounded tube. But that said, I can get over it. This is actually a pretty affordable concealer considering it's kind of in that like mid-range drugstore section. This is one of those brands that kind of walks in between, kind of like About Face. They're not as expensive as things you would find at Sephora, but they're a little bit more expensive than just your everyday drugstore brand like an e.l.f. or a Revlon. I'm very impressed with this stuff though. Since I've had it for the last couple months, it's been constantly on my desk or in my top drawer. I use it time and time again, especially when I'm in a hurry. This is one of those concealers that I don't have to think very much about. I can apply it with a brush or with a sponge and it works really well. Blends quickly, it sets nicely. This is one that I do like to set with just a little bit of powder, especially if I'm using it on my eyelids. It's also one of the most hydrating formulas that I'm mentioning today. So any of my dry skin girls out there that want something that's not going to feel drier, that's going to give you a little bit of added hydration, this is a really nice formula. The next concealer I'm going to mention, I was a little bit hesitant to put in this list because it's one of the least cost effective that I'm talking about today. It's the Natasha Denona Hy-Glam Concealer. This concealer has grown on me quite a bit. The first time I tried this out, I was still a little bit resentful of how much I spent on this thing. It's a pretty pricey concealer. It has 0.23 ounces in it. It's $30. I actually think that's not outrageously expensive for a Natasha Denona concealer. I would actually be thrilled about it if it had more product inside of it. But as for the formula itself, one of the higher coverage concealers that I'm talking about today, I would say this is an 8, maybe 8.5 as far as coverage level. It is a little bit creamier, slightly thicker, but I would not call this cakey at all. Not in the way that if you've tried out the Dior Forever Skin Concealer, which I really love because of its high coverage level, that concealer can get a little bit heavy and cakey looking if you're not very careful. This one I find to be a little bit easier to blend. It does say that it's crease proof. I don't know about that. I mean, I probably could not put this on my eyelids without powdering it and have it not crease on me, but I also wouldn't call it creasy or slippery in any way. It's nice and hydrating, really good coverage. The formula is one that you can use everywhere. I can use it under my eyes, on the perimeter of my face, on age spots. Again, a good general purpose concealer. This is one that I will use when I'm in a hurry, but I also want to pick something a little bit nicer. Maybe I'm doing a quick date night look or like a nice Sunday church look. Like I want my makeup to look very polished and put together. This is one of the concealers that I'll reach for the most because it's just so reliable. I love the packaging of this one. I love the doe foot. I love these long, very flexible doe foots like this. I think I like these more than I like the large, chunkier doe foots, which I think all of the other concealers I'm mentioning today do have a larger doe foot in them. It's not that big of a deal. I don't usually get too hung up on the applicator. This is also one that I typically will powder if I'm using it on my eyelids. Honestly, there's only one concealer here today that I would consider not powdering. We'll talk about that in just a minute. That said, I don't mind that at all. I would rather have a concealer. It's going to be a little bit creamier and kind of more flexible on my skin than something that is too dry or budge proof, which generally speaking, those concealers don't work for every area of my face. This one seems to work everywhere. All right, let's talk about a drugstore concealer, shall we? This one has been a favorite of mine for I think a couple of years now. It is the Revlon Flex Wear Full Cover Concealer. This is such a great one. First off, the value in this thing is fantastic. You can get this concealer for under $10 and you get 0.34 ounces of product inside this tube. That is a fantastic deal. This is a really good long wearing concealer, but I don't find it to be drying on me. I also find that it does take a minute to set down and dry, so I have plenty of time to blend. It's not quite as thick as the Natasha Denona one. It's a little bit thinner than that one, but the coverage level is great. I would say this has like a 7.5, 8 level of coverage. Maybe I would give the Natasha Denona just a tiny bit more coverage level to it, but I do love the longevity of this one. It definitely does have that long wearing color stay power. I actually use 2 shades of this. When I use it, I have light medium, and then I think I also have the shade fair light. Actually, no, it's just light. So I use these 2 shades together. If I have to pick one shade, this light medium shade when I'm a little bit tanner, like in the summertime, works great for me all over. I can use it on my eyelids. I usually like something to brighten up a little bit, but if I'm in a hurry and I don't have time or want to be bothered with reaching for more than one shade of concealer, I'll just go with the light medium shade and it works great. It's also pretty buildable. This one, if you have something really stubborn to cover, you can layer it up a little bit, which is typically the route I like to go with my concealer. I like to start very small and very strategically. I don't just swipe my concealer in large areas of my face. I try to dot it just where I need it and then blend as I go and add more if I need to. This is a really easy one to do that with. It doesn't crease or give me any issues. I do typically set this one down on my eyelids if I am using this on my eyelids because most concealers will crease on me, but I actually don't need to set this one on the rest of my face, which I really appreciate. Sometimes I just don't want to bother reaching for a powder if I don't have to. The next concealer is the Estee Lauder Double Wear Stay in Place Concealer. This is also a relatively newer one to my collection. Has great reviews. I don't know why it took me so long to try this thing out because I think it's been out for a while now. So here's what I love the most about this concealer. If I really have something difficult to cover and I have a good bit of time to get it covered, this is a very layerable concealer. So with one small layer of it or light layer of it, I would say this has a good level 6 or 7 coverage, so kind of a slightly higher medium coverage. But it sets down very, very quickly. And once it is set, this stuff is set. It is not going to budge. And then you can actually layer a little bit more on top of it to get your coverage level up to like an 8 or a 9, which is where I think this thing is a powerhouse. There are certain areas on my face, for example, this little spot I have on my cheek, which if you guys have been watching me for a while, you're probably familiar with this spot. This is one of the very few concealers that I can layer a second layer right on top of that spot there and it will completely erase it. Almost nothing completely erases that spot, but I love the buildable nature of this concealer. It's a little bit on the drier side. This is one that I would recommend blending as you go. So I wouldn't dot this everywhere and then wait for it to set because it will set. Like you might get some areas where you have a hard time blending it out because it really sets down quickly. This one makes a really great eyeshadow primer. If you have issues with creasing on your eyelids and you don't want to be bothered with using an eyelid primer and then a concealer on top and then setting it down with a powder, just use this. It'll do a great job underneath your eyeshadow. I use the shade 2W, which is a pretty good match for me. I would say it's a little bit light for me right now for the perimeter of my face, but I can get away with it. In the wintertime, in a few months, this shade specifically will match me really well. The value on this thing is pretty good. It's $38, which I know is very pricey, but you get 0.4 ounces in this concealer, which is so much product. This is gonna last you a very long time. Such a good one. The more I've gotten the hang of how to use this, the more I've realized what a great concealer it is and why it has such great reviews. Honestly, it has like 400 5-star reviews on the Sephora website, which is pretty dang good. And for my last of my top 5 concealers, you guys have probably been waiting for this one, is the Revolution Skin Silk Concealer. Now, for those of you that are new here and not familiar with everything that I've been saying about this concealer for the last couple of months, this is only for my under eyes. I don't use this anywhere else. It's too liquidy and thin and creasy if I use it on my eyelids. I actually can't even use it on this section of my under eyes. I only use this on my dark circles. So basically from like this pocket right here down in this kind of area right here, sometimes I'll take it a little bit down the side of my nose, but I try not to go all the way across my eye because as I smile, this is where my fine lines are, and this will sink into my fine lines if I do that. But nothing I've ever tried brightens up this little pocket right here as well as this concealer does. I use the light peach shade. I have compared this to the Cali Ray Hideaway concealer, which I use in Pale Sun. I do love that one, but I'm finding that I like this one even a little bit better. I think partly it's the shade. Both of them are highly, highly pigmented. They're a very thin formula, so coverage-wise, I wouldn't say that they give you like a level 9 or 10 coverage, but because there's so much pigment in them, they cover up or counter dark circles really, really well. So in some ways I would say they're very high coverage, but this is not gonna cover up, say that I used it on like acne scarring or on hyperpigmentation marks. It's not gonna cover something like that up, but it does a great job at concealing or brightening up the under eye. My favorite way to apply this is just to use the metal doe foot, which you can see right here, which is really nice and cooling. Initially I thought it was kind of odd because I had never used something quite like this before. I'll typically just spend a couple of seconds just kind of massaging this into that very small area right there. Then I'll grab a brush. Any small blending brush will work. I use the BK Beauty A506, which is, in my opinion, the ultimate concealer brush for your under eyes. And I'll just tap it into that area right there. And man, you guys, my under eyes look amazing. They have looked better the last few months than they have in the last 5 years of my life. And without it, they're not looking that good. So I owe it all to this concealer right here. It's working so well for me for that specific purpose. Of course, it's also available at the drugstore. You can find it for under $10, which is always a bonus. And that is it, you guys. Those are my top 5 concealers currently. What'd you guys think about this one? Were any of these big surprises to you? I actually think most of them might have been a surprise with the exception of this one right here. But it has been fun to go through all my concealers, like my old favorites that have maybe made lists in the past, and kind of see which ones are still working for me. There's still a ton that I really love, but these are the ones that I'm finding are the most effective for what I need out of my concealer as I'm getting older. But I hope that you guys found this video helpful. I would love to hear from you guys. What is your top concealer? I'm sure there are some really good concealers out there that I still have not tried. So if you have recommendations, leave those down below. Thank you guys again for joining me today. I hope you guys are doing well. Please make sure that you subscribe if you haven't done that yet. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.